These long dog days of summer, I mean, we just made it through a heat wave. Mama was parched through this heat wave. I was hitting up Dunkin' every single day, and I will continue to probably for the rest of my days, but especially this summer. Dunkin' is helping everyone stay cool this summer with its lineup of refreshers. These drinks are packed with bold, fruity flavors and served ice cold. It's amazing. Dunkin' refreshers are the perfect afternoon pick-me-up. I like to start my morning with them personally, and then sometimes I go back for a second one because I'm just feeling crazy. They come in a variety of delicious flavors, including fan favorites mango pineapple and strawberry dragon fruit. And then for a limited time, there's black cherry and there's pink pineapple. I'm going to tell you something right now, and it's a bold claim, let me tell you, but I stand behind it. Pink pineapple will change your life. It is so good. It has me feeling like I'm sitting in a pool, resort side, just living, honey. It's so yummy. Try your favorite flavor with green tea, sparkling water, lemonade, or Dunkin's all-new limeade. I haven't tried the limeade yet, but I'm going to. Usually I get my drinks made with green tea and occasionally lemonade, but I do really like the green tea. Or if you don't want to build your own, try one of Dunkin's curated refreshers like the Cherry Lime Ricky or the Ultimate Pink Daydream. The Cherry Lime Ricky, scrumptious. I could drink like 3 of these a day. They're so freaking yummy. Head to Dunkin' today and find your favorite refresher. Dunkin' refreshers contain less than 1% fruit juice. Limited time offer. You know what's really terrifying? That unfinished college degree lurking in the background, just sitting there waiting for you. That's where Southern New Hampshire University comes in. With flexible online degree programs, there's no commuting, no rigid schedule, and no more excuses. Plus, they have some of the lowest online tuition rates in the U.S. Visit snhu.edu/morbid to learn more before your degree becomes just another story about what could have been. Every good detective needs a partner to support them on important cases. Think of a State Farm agent like your sidekick, there to help you along the way in your search for coverage. State Farm can help you choose the coverage you need, whether it's for your home, car, boat, or even RV. With so many options, it's nice knowing you have help finding what fits for you so you can get back to solving all of life's bigger cases. Go to statefarm.com or use the award-winning app to connect with a local agent and get a quote. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Hey, weirdos, I am Ash.
And I'm Elena.
And this is Morbid.
She's got chocolate in her mouth.
Sorry. We were doing room silence first, and I thought I had enough time to eat the Hershey Kiss that was in my mouth, but I was letting it melt in my mouth, and then I tried to talk, and it was just a whole thing.
So really just ignore.
It's not my narration, so I figured I could just sit here and eat some fucking Hershey Kisses.
She's like, I can do whatever the fuck I want today.
It's Wiley up in here today. I don't know what they put in my Jersey Mike sub, but I feel crazy. I've just been saying silly things.
She's been wily, my friends. Like wily.
Wily, reckless, and straight up cuckoo.
All of those things.
Yeah.
And I don't know. We don't really have a whole... it's a holiday break
Yeah, Christmas
for everyone
was like yesterday.
else.
Sorry if you can hear the deck they're making in our fucking...
Yeah, I apologize.
Fucking neighbors.
Well, my neighbors, they're working. So they got shit going on.
I don't know if it's them per se.
You never know.
That's true. I don't know.
Either way, here we are.
Right.
And we're here to bring you some content.
Daddy made you your favorite open wide.
Here comes the content.
They're like, shut up and give it to me.
I know. I'm sorry. Okay. So,
no, not you, just us.
No, I get it, man. I totally get it. But this is a two-parter.
Ooh.
I'm coming at you straight off of an old-timey case with something from the 2000s.
Oh, shit.
So,
I didn't realize that. We were like chatting earlier.
So look at me. This is Elena.
I'm looking at you.
And I'm bringing you a case that is not in the 1800s or the early 1900s.
Here's to looking at you, kid.
So, yeah, that's where I usually am, in a place of, here's looking at you, kid. But
I know it's true.
No, I'm in a Y2K place.
Oh, that's funny. I'm in like the oldies for my case.
We switched.
Actually, I don't know if mine comes out before yours or after.
Who
I
knows?
don't know anything.
I don't know when anything comes out because either way, this is a two-parter. We're going to be talking about Ronald Dominique, the Bayou Strangler.
I don't know this one.
And it's sad that you don't because a lot of people don't.
Oh.
And I think it's because of who he chose as victims.
Oh, no.
The police, like everybody investigating this and the press, did not put enough emphasis on finding this guy fast enough because the people that he chose as victims, he knew that the investigators were going to look at and say, well, they're high risk in what they're doing, or, it's probably their own fault because they did this.
The victims that people consider
totally
less dead. Exactly.
They get blamed for their own just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Luckily, don't worry, he does eventually get caught, but a lot of people lost their lives along the way, and a lot of them were not treated well in the press. So this case is not, a lot of people don't know about it, and it's not discussed. It wasn't discussed in the press respectfully at all.
That's really frustrating.
And it sucks. So in the spring of 2005, law enforcement officials in southern Louisiana had a growing number of murder victims. And they had started to suspect that they were connected. They were thinking, okay, I think we do have either a serial killer or serial killers.
Shit.
Because the victims were all men, mostly in their 20s. They were all men and boys, I should say, because some were younger. Mostly in their 20s and 30s, but there was a couple that were lower than that. Not children per se, and under 10 or anything like that, but there was some 16,
still
18,
young.
19 boys. So they were all, around that age, and they were all vulnerable targets that the killer or killers were clearly actively preying on. And they were thought to be on the fringes of society, a lot of them. Some of them were known to be actively struggling with substance abuse or have a history of substance abuse struggles. A lot of them were known to police as doing sex work, either for their job or doing it sometimes just as a desperation thing.
Yep.
And they had all been strangled and dumped in secondary locations.
Oh, wow.
And they were all locations like marshes, bayous, like a sugarcane field.
Oh, wow.
A few of them were, and they were all those locations were used multiple times.
Okay.
So eventually Ronald Dominique would be connected to the murders, and his count at the end would be the deaths of at least 23 men and boys.
Wow.
That's what blows my mind that this is not more well known, because
that's nuts.
A large amount of victims.
And that's at least 23?
Yeah, that's what they know about.
Wow.
And it was in a pretty small span of time, all things considered.
And this was in the 2000s?
So where we begin is in the spring of 2005. That's when they really started connecting everything.
I can't believe I don't know about this.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Now, over the course of a decade, Ronald Dominique developed into one of the worst and most prolific serial killers in American history. But like I just said, his story and those of his victims remain largely unknown and kind of ignored by mainstream media.
That's so messed up.
And it's really wild. So let's talk about Ronald Dominique. Where the fuck did he come from?
Seriously.
Because what? So little is known about Ronald Dominique's life before his first run-in with the law. We know he was born January 9th, 1964. He's the youngest of 6 children to working-class parents in Thibodaux, Louisiana.
And a Capricorn.
Yeah. I know, I don't love it.
No.
And Thibodaux is a small city about halfway between New Orleans and Baton Rouge. His family appears to have been pretty active and committed to their local church. And at a young age, we can at least point to something that was a very big trauma in his life. At a very young age, Ronald told his parents that he had been sexually abused by a priest at the church.
Oh, no.
They reacted horrifically and didn't believe him.
I never understand that.
How do you not believe
How do
your
you believe
child?
somebody outside of your family
You believe this random guy
who is said to be doing this?
and instead of your own child? I don't get that. No one's ever going to explain that to me, so don't even try. I don't get it. I don't get it.
I do not
They just were like,
that.
yeah, must be lying. That's fucked up.
Oh my God.
So that's a big trauma. And Ronald entered Thibodaux High School in the fall of 1979. He's saying in that span of time, that's the big trauma that happened. Outside of that, there's really nothing of note. You know,
Yeah,
it
but
was
that's
pretty.
that
but
alone.
that alone is like, whoa.
That alone, and then compounded by the fact that his parents didn't believe him.
Exactly.
And then if his parents didn't believe him, how much longer did that go on? Because they didn't.
Exactly. And when you read a lot of sources about this, like books and such, and we'll obviously link all the books like we always do, but a lot of them point to the fact that he struggled with his own sexual identity for most of his life.
Okay.
And growing up in a religious home, obviously he was trying to hide that.
Yeah.
And his parents were, people believe that they were probably catching on to that. And they took him saying that about the priest as just an extension of that.
Because they probably believed that he was like mentally ill for
and they believed,
being gay.
They believe you're gay, so we're not going to believe you about this, and who knows?
Wow.
It's just, and that's what really wraps all this into such like an awful ball of trauma, because it's like there's so many layers to it for him as a kid.
Yeah, you definitely feel bad for the child.
And you feel bad for the child when you find out what an adult he is. You're like, wow, you're a fucking monster.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, holy shit.
Right.
But he, in high school, he was involved in clubs. He sang in the Glee Club. He was in the chorus. He enjoyed being a part of that. But he was bullied and harassed pretty relentlessly at school by his peers, according to an old school kind of like acquaintance, just a
somebody who knew him.
Fellow student. They said they heard he was gay and they wanted him to admit it, and he didn't. He was pretending that he wasn't, and he would not openly admit it. Which, here's the thing. I don't understand being like, I just want you to say you're gay. Like,
why?
Why the fuck do you care?
Exactly.
Never once have I been like, I need to know this person's, sexual preference.
Well, it's like you don't know their sexual preference better than they do. Maybe he wasn't.
It's also not my fucking
business.
business.
He hadn't discovered it yet. Maybe he doesn't want you to know.
That's also, it's like, as long as it's a consenting adult, I don't give a shit who you are attracted to. Like, it's not why would I care?
And the only reason that these people wanted to know is probably so that they could bully him for it.
Him. That's the thing.
And
it's
just
like,
have like concrete shit to bully him on.
And that's what annoys me is it's like, it comes out as like, they just wanted him to admit it. And everybody acts like, we just wanted him to admit it. And it's like, okay, so if he admitted it, that was going to be like, thank you.
Oh, we're good.
No, it was so you could relentlessly torture him more. And it's like, what the fuck?
Right, like what is wrong with you?
And it's not just, Ronald Dominique, obviously. It's like any kid that this happens to. I'm like, I don't get that. Or like even adults when they're like, this guy just needs to admit that he's gay. Why?
Why? What effect does that have on your life? What bearing?
Were you forced to actively admit that you were straight?
No.
Were you forced to actively admit anything like that? Like, no.
Exactly.
Nobody cares. Like, it's just like, what the fuck? It's such a weird mindset
Society
for me. I don't get it.
Wild.
It's just a strange, very alien mindset to me. But either way, he was also considered, he struggled with his weight a lot. He was very overweight when he was younger and into adulthood, which of course, as a teen, puts a target on your back.
Oh, yeah.
And the harassment from schoolmates definitely led to some like depression, poor self-esteem. He definitely had underdeveloped social skills by that point. And it kind of stuck with him for like decades at that point. Like not necessarily like the poor self-esteem and all that. I'm sure like, he's a serial killer. I'm sure he got something out of that. But social skills he did not have.
Right.
Getting paid twice a month doesn't mean money is scarce. It just feels that way. That feeling makes you do weird stuff, like putting things on a card you didn't need to. Earnin removes that feeling. With Earnin, you can access up to $150 per day of money you've already earned, plus up to $1,000 between paychecks. Standard transfers take 1 to 2 business days with no mandatory fees, and expedited transfers start at $3.99 and cap at $5.99. 5 million people are already on it, and honestly, it's wild it didn't exist sooner. Download Earnin on the App Store or Google Play, spelled like earning money without the G. Type in Morbid under podcast when you sign up. It'll really help the show. Earnin is a financial technology company, not a bank. Access limits are based on your earnings and risk factors. Standard cash outs take 1 to 2 business days with no mandatory fees. Expedited transfers available for a fee. Tips are voluntary and don't affect the service. Available in select states. Terms and restrictions apply. Visit earnin.com for full details. Every good detective needs a partner to support them on important cases. Think of a State Farm agent like your sidekick, there to help you along the way in your search for coverage. State Farm can help you choose the coverage you need, whether it's for your home, car, boat, or even RV. With so many options, it's nice knowing you have help finding what fits for you so you can get back to solving all of life's bigger cases. Go to statefarm.com or use the award-winning app to connect with a local agent and get a quote. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Now, after graduating in 1983, he enrolled in Nicholls State University and he decided to major in computer science.
Oh,
But
wow.
he dropped out after only a year or two. So he
Also,
didn't stick
wow.
with it. Also, wow. Now, his criminal history began in the late spring of 1985 when he was arrested for making sexually harassing phone calls to his neighbors.
Ew.
Now, looking at this in hindsight, like back then in the 80s, I was like, oh my God, it's weird,
Yeah.
silly, crazy. And it's just like, and now we look at it with all the knowledge we all
It's like,
have.
what did that mean?
We know that this sexually deviant behavior is similar to many sexual predators who eventually escalate to sexual violence.
Yeah.
It is very much a precursor to
Right.
that. There is study after study after. A peeping Tom is not just a peeping Tom.
No.
That is the first foray into, if it is not stopped, becoming violent.
Right.
That is just how it goes. But at the time, it was seen like a
It was
nuisance.
a crank
Like,
call.
that's silly, a weird nuisance. He paid a $75 fine,
Wow.
and that was it.
That's
No jail.
wild.
Now, by the time he reached his early 20s, he was working odd jobs, really didn't have a lot of connections to people, not a lot of friends, not like a social group. And according to a former roommate with whom he shared an apartment in 1985, Ronald, quote, didn't have many friends and he didn't keep friends.
Okay.
So it doesn't look like he was able to like maintain a relationship either, which is like, that's like a typical, and we'll see there is an FBI profile that comes out later. That is always typical on an FBI profile of a serial killer where it's like, he's not going to have a lot of connections. He's not
Yeah.
going to be able to, and it checks.
I was going to say.
A lot of the time it checks, not all the time. We've
like
seen plenty.
antisocial behavior.
Yeah. But he also never fully felt comfortable, like we mentioned, with his own sexuality and often felt that he was kind of an outsider in all communities.
Mhm.
So he was just kind of like, he was convinced himself that he didn't belong anywhere. It wasn't, when he became an adult, it wasn't necessarily people treating him poorly. Like, obviously he went through high school and he dealt with all that. That's
Yeah.
rough.
But a lot of people come out of that.
But a lot of many people come out of there and they find their own thing.
You find
and,
your
you know, you
group
find
and-
your group, you find your people. And it's like he had convinced himself that the world was against him. And it's like, wasn't people actively doing it? He was just creating that for himself. And back in those days, no one really recalled Ronald's, like, you know, dating anyone, having any romantic relationships. His former roommate didn't even remember him bringing anyone to the apartment. No guests, nothing. Like, no
Wow.
friends, nothing. Basically, whether it was his poor social skills or what we now know, what he was like very unkempt. So, like, he was not put together at all.
Ew.
Ronald's night he spent a lot of nights at bars in and around Houma, which we'll talk about Houma more because he moves there
Okay.
in Louisiana. He spent a lot of time in bars around there, and he wasn't there like drinking and dancing and like meeting people. He was just kind of playing pool and kind of, for lack of a better term, like lurking on the
Yeah.
fringes of everything. And he kind of found himself like wanting to step into Louisiana's gay scene at the time, like kind of get involved, meet some people, but he didn't have pure intentions with it. It wasn't like he was looking to involve himself to find friends, like get into relationships, like, you know, form connections.
Right.
After his arrest, we find out that his presence in which at the time it was a very small, openly gay community in southern Louisiana in the 80s.
Yeah.
It was a much more menacing implication that he had where he was trying to get involved in it.
That makes sense.
That's where he was basically creeping among the most vulnerable and at risk in the community to find his first victims.
Mhm.
That's what he was doing.
And like building some kind of courage is not the right word, but you know what I mean? Like building
he
the
was
gumption
just
to do it.
To actually do it. Yeah. Which is really, when you look back on
So
it,
creepy.
it's got so many, it's so spooky.
It's
I don't like
menacing.
it. Yeah, I don't, it's like you just think of him like just creeping around in those bars, like trying to make connections, but like for the most horrific of purposes.
Yeah.
Like,
it reminds me of Jeffrey Dahmer, the way he would
Yeah.
like just lurk at bars.
Exactly. In 1994, Dominique popped up on police radar again because he was arrested for drunk driving. But it was 2 years later that we finally got a little look into the violent part of him. At this time, police were called to his apartment after neighbors saw a man climbing down from Dominique's apartment window. And this reminds me of Jeffrey Dahmer, too.
Yeah.
This man was screaming, "He's trying to kill me."
Oh, my God.
When sheriff's deputies arrived, the, quote, partially clad young man told the officers that Ronald had raped him and would have killed him if he had not escaped out the window.
Oh, my God.
Now, this man is partially clothed, climbing out a window, screaming, "He's trying to kill me," said he was raped and he would have been killed if he didn't escape. Ronald was arrested for sexual assault and held on a $100,000 bond, which he definitely couldn't pay.
Mm-hmm.
So he sat in the county jail, luckily, for 3 months pending a trial. Now, a conviction for sexual assault and attempted murder would have put Ronald in a federal prison for a long time.
Yeah,
like we would have said
absolutely.
goodbye, see you later. Fortunately for him, and unfortunately for the rest of society, when the trial date finally arrived, the complainant didn't show up.
Oh, no.
And they couldn't locate him.
And that's so sad because
Think about the time period.
And think about the time period and just what had happened in general.
Horrific.
Like, a lot of people wouldn't show up to
Yeah.
face somebody that had done that to them.
That's horrifying.
Yeah.
In every way that can be horrifying.
Right.
And they couldn't find him, which also you're like, what happened? Like, where did he go?
I know. I hope he's okay.
In November of 1996, the judge in the case continued the case indefinitely, and the district attorney dropped the charges.
That is
So
awful.
he had those charges just dropped.
Wow.
He raped and tried to kill a man who had to escape out of his window, and he got away with it.
That's why the justice system is so broken.
And you would think if the victim had been treated with a lot of respect and compassion and felt like they had a support system,
Right.
then maybe they would have shown up. And it makes me sad that we don't know for sure, but I don't know if they felt that way.
They probably didn't because they didn't have like the victim advocacy programs that they do now.
Because it's like the early 90s at this point. It's like in the early 90s in Louisiana, it's like there was not a lot, like you said, in the way of advocacy. So after that close call, Ronald did manage to avoid police for several years, actually.
Wow.
It was in 2000 that he got arrested again for disturbing the peace.
And that makes you wonder, in between, during those years, what happened?
Was he just being more subtle about it?
Right.
It's like,
because that's, he very clearly would have killed that man had he not escaped. Yeah. Which makes me question, one, had he done that before? Mm-hmm. And two, was he doing it in the meantime and somehow was just able to get away with it?
That's what I wonder. But then you look at, and we'll mention him at some point, you look at like Dennis Rader.
Who stopped for a long time.
Old shit flower there. Yeah. Like you look at him, he stopped for a long time.
Years and years and years.
And just went on with his life before.
It is strange.
But either way, he paid the fine for disturbing the peace and managed to avoid going before a judge. But he was arrested again 2 years later after slapping a woman at a Mardi Gras parade.
The fuck?
In lieu of jail time or a fine, he was offered the opportunity to participate in an alternative sentencing program.
Okay.
This required people to meet and maintain certain expectations, basically, for the program. He had to maintain a job, display good behavior, and it was all in order to avoid the harsher penalties that honestly should have come.
Yeah. Get a job and don't slap women anymore, and we'll excuse the one time you did.
It's totally fine.
The fuck?
And so he managed to meet the requirements of the program, and 6 months later, the offense was completely discharged from his record.
Broken justice system.
Yeah. We see this so many times.
It's bad.
Now, following this whole thing and successfully getting that taken off of his record, Ronald Dominique appeared to be somewhat getting his life together a little bit for a minute, or at least trying to. During the day, he got a job at a produce company in Houma, but the job wasn't enough to really make ends meet, so he found a second job as an evening delivery driver for Domino's Pizza.
No.
Yep. And when he wasn't working, he was he told people that he knew that he really wanted to be a productive member of society, so he became a full member of the local Lions Club. Which also reminds me a little bit of John Wayne Gacy with I need to be involved in the community, pretend that everything's fine. When you see how he does it, he lures people into his clutches,
Yeah.
only to kind of surprise them by binding them and killing them.
Wow.
It's very John Wayne Gacy.
I was going to say very.
And also Jeffrey Dahmer, and also Dennis Rader, and also like he's a big combination of many.
Yeah.
But in the Lions Club, he became a popular figure at regular bingo nights,
Much like Gacy.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, like, obviously not bingo nights, but
yeah, but he seemed determined to be kind of like a positive member of society at this point. He was at least was putting on the facade.
Imagine knowing you played bingo with that man. That's fucked.
Oh my goodness. And what police and community members didn't know at this time, because again, like I said, he was putting on the facade.
But clearly it wasn't real.
An active and positive community member. But police in the community would soon find out that by 2002, the man who was now that popular bingo caller and pizza delivery driver around town had already raped and murdered at least 11 men.
Wow.
And he would go on to rape and murder 12 more by the time he was finally caught.
Oh my God.
11 men and boys he had already raped and murdered.
And the
at
fact
this time.
that you can just do that at whatever point
and then
in your life.
pull numbers for bingo.
Exactly. And deliver somebody's pizza.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. So we're going to start talking about this case. We're going to back up now to 1997, 1998.
Okay.
That's when the murders at St. Charles Parish happened. So on July 12th, 1997, 19-year-old David Mitchell Jr. attended a birthday party with his mother, Latrice Mitchell, and his aunt, Rita Aubrey. At some point, there was an argument that broke out between David and another guest. So his aunt dropped him off at his grandmother's house in Hahnville, Louisiana, where he was going to wait for his uncle to come pick him up and drive him the 5 miles back to his house in Lulling.
Okay.
His aunt later said, quote, "My brother didn't show up, so I guess he decided to try to hitchhike back to his mom's." Now, when the family hadn't heard from Mitchell the following day, they assumed he'd maybe stopped off at a friend's house, stayed the night. Like, there was no real cause for alarm at first.
Yeah, and probably
He's
like
19.
trying to cool off after whatever fight this was.
And the following day, David Mitchell didn't report for work. And when his mother checked his bedroom, his ID badge and work clothes were still on the bed untouched, and that was not like him.
Okay.
He would go to work. And it also wasn't like David to miss work, and it wasn't like David to stay out all night.
Check in.
They were trying to think in their heads like, okay, maybe we missed him mentioning that he was going to a friend's house or something. They were already a little on edge because he wasn't one to just do that.
Right.
So Latrice Mitchell did call the police, his mother, to report her son missing. While waiting for an update, Latrice Mitchell, his mother, got her update unexpectedly because her son's photo flashed across the television screen in a local news segment about a drowned body of a young black man found in an industrial area of Louisiana Highway 3160.
So they had already found him, most likely at the time that she reported him missing?
They didn't know it was him. That's the thing. They had only found an unidentified young black man. And when she called, they didn't know that they had already found him.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but that's how she found out.
That's horrible.
Horrific. So now it begins. This whole authority shrugging these families off. Now the authorities were they were like, meh. Police immediately classified David Mitchell as leading a high-risk lifestyle, and despite being found with his pants around his ankles, having no drugs or alcohol in his system, and being known as a good swimmer, his death was labeled an accident and the case was closed.
And what are they talking about high-risk lifestyle in his case? Like,
that's what kills me here, is that high risk is like a legitimate term. It's an actual term that can be used like for things like you grew up in an abusive household, something that's totally beyond your own, control of your own circumstances, just something that is happening to you.
Like innocuous shit.
Exactly. But here, it was totally weaponized by so many people involved in this case to make it seem like these people were doing things that led to their own murder. Like they did something that they deserved this almost. They weren't saying that, but they were saying it by implying that.
Yeah, they were saying the quiet part out loud.
Exactly. They were implying that somehow this was their own fault.
That's bullshit.
He still got killed.
Right.
Like, why are we
You still have
pretending
to
that it's like
investigate it.
there's still a person?
Yeah, there's still a
They still
killer
have
out
people
there.
who give a shit about them. Like, that's such a weird, callous way to look at, like, when the investigators look at it this
is.
way. It's like, it doesn't matter what that, like, this is a person.
Right.
This is someone's
With a
person,
family.
and you need to investigate what the fuck happened.
It's your whole job.
Now, tragic as it was, the death of David Mitchell didn't strike law enforcement as anything more than an unfortunate accident.
Wow.
Pants around his ankles, and it was an accident.
No.
But within a year, his death would get a second look because it was in the wake of 2 more deaths of a similar nature, neither of which were accidental and really couldn't be
Explained away.
termed as accidental. In mid-December of 1997, 20-year-old Gary Pierre's body was discovered in a wooded area of Mons, which is an unincorporated area of St. Charles Parish. Unlike Mitchell, Pierre had been sexually assaulted, confirmed. His body showed signs of having been bound at some point prior to his death, and he died by asphyxiation due to neck compression.
Oh, wow.
Now, according to the investigators, Pierre, of course they had to say, Pierre was, quote, heavily involved with drugs. Like, so despite having been tied up, raped, and strangled, his death at first was initially classified not as murder, but as unclassified.
How is that unclassified? What more do you need to classify that as a murder?
Think about that this really happened, and this really happens, that a person can be raped, tied up, raped, and strangled, confirmed.
And you sit there and say it's unclassified?
And the investigators can say, we don't know what happened here because he had a drug problem at one point. What? That's wild.
That's unreal. And just what a slap in the face to his entire family and anyone that ever loved him.
Because all you want is to, like, I don't give a shit
Who cares?
What was going on in his life. Like, I want to know what happened here.
Right.
What happened here?
Right.
Like, what the fuck? So, like David Mitchell, Gary Pierre's death had been largely forgotten about until the end of July 1998 when Charles Parish investigators discovered another body.
Oh my God.
That of 38-year-old Larry Ranson in a remote area off Louisiana Highway 3160. I don't know if it's 3160 or 3160. I don't know. Sorry. I looked up every pronunciation for everything, and I just didn't look up that. But it was not far from where David Mitchell's body was discovered, almost exactly 1 year earlier. And Ranson's body was fully clothed, and aside from having been, quote, kicked in the groin, the only trauma was the asphyxiation that had caused his death. As in the case of Gary Pierre, Larry Ranson was believed to have struggled with drugs, which police believed was somehow linked to his death. They could not.
You guys gotta stop just sitting on that.
So they labeled it unclassified.
Oh my God.
Come on.
It's like, what are you investigating
And
right
it's
now?
also like, okay, so if you're concentrating on that part of it, that's a link between them.
Between
so why
all
are we
three
not
of
looking
these?
at something going on here?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Now, unfortunately, there is a limited amount of information about Dominique's first 3 victims that we just mentioned, but their demographic profiles are significant, and they'll become more significant as these murders continue. All 3 are Black men of lower socioeconomic backgrounds. 2 of them, Pierre and Ranson, are known to be either gay or bisexual, and at least 2, Pierre and Ranson, have some history, allegedly, of substance abuse or addiction.
Okay.
Again, these pieces of personal information are only important in the sense of showing that there is a pattern and a victim profile that will continue.
Right.
It also shows that the investigation was heavily biased against them because of prejudices of some kind or another at multiple times during the investigation.
It sounds like multiple prejudice.
Yeah. Because
prejudices.
initially, St. Charles Parish investigators assumed the quote-unquote high-risk lifestyles of these men were at least partially related to their deaths. And really, little effort was put into solving these deaths.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
But in February 1999, the Pierre and Ranson cases were finally reclassified as murders and investigated as such. Unfortunately, by that time, Ronald Dominique had already killed 3 more times.
Wow.
Now, we're going to move into the murders that happened in the New Orleans suburbs from 1998 to 1999. The afternoon of October 3rd, 1998 was unseasonably hot, even for Louisiana. So Ronald Dominique drove the half hour or so from Hanville to the French Quarter. He was hoping that, the excitement, the activity of the French Quarter, that whole neighborhood would be enough to blow off some of his steam. He was basically looking to pay for sex that night.
Okay.
In New Orleans, French Quarter, especially at this time, sex or anything else for that matter was relatively easy to find down there. It was like a big party atmosphere.
I was going to say big party scene.
That afternoon, Ronald made his way to Rawhide, which was a well-known bar in the quarter, and he took a seat at the bar next to 27-year-old Oliver LeBancs. Oliver had come to the bar with his brother and a couple of friends, but he didn't really like Rawhide and he wasn't really into this whole thing. So while they were dancing and mingling and doing whatever, he just took a seat at the bar and had a beer. He was like, I'm just hanging out.
Yeah.
Now, after making some small talk, it was apparent what Dominique was looking for. So they worked out the specifics.
This part of the show is brought to you by Anua, the Korean skincare brand known for scientific, gentle, yet effective formulations. The latest from Anua is the Retinol Collagen Gua Sha Cream, a firming cream with a gua sha-shaped tip built right in. Have you guys heard of gua sha? It's that viral massage tool that moves fluid and tension out of your face. Less puffiness, a snatched jawline, honey, more definition in your face. Retinol firms and reduces fine lines, and collagen keeps your skin plump and structured. This cream has both of those things, arguably the most optimal combo for that snatched, lifted look all in one step. I am obsessed with the Gua Sha cream. First of all, it feels so cool to the touch. When you put that on your face, it's just like, this is lovely. It's like a little spa treatment that you can give yourself. I like to do mine at night after I get out of the shower. I rub the cream on my face with the little gua sha. I'm sculpting that jawline, honey. I got it on the cheekbones. And actually, I had a facial the other day, and the lady doing my facial, the professional, she said, "Do you use a gua sha at home?" And I said, "I do." And I said, "How did you know that?" And she said, "I didn't have those little bumps in my chin or different areas like that." So she could tell that I was using the gua sha. And I said, "Oh my God." I just feel like I wake up less puffy in the morning when I do it the night before. But you can do it whenever you want to. I, 10 out of 10, recommend this product. The Anua Gua Sha Cream value set is available at anua.com, already discounted. Use code MORBID for an extra 10% off. That's ANUA.com, code MORBID. The Sherwin-Williams summer sale is here. Get 30% off select paints and stains or 35% off their newest product, Emerald Symmetry, July 17th through the 27th. Whether you're looking to refresh your interior or your exterior, they've got the colors to bring your vision to life. And with delivery, getting everything to your door is easier than ever. Shop online or visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details. Delivery available on qualifying orders.
Specifics of a transactional sexual experience between the two of them, and the two men left the bar in the direction of Ronald's car.
Okay.
Now, it was dark by the time they reached the car, and it was in the parking lot of the Jack's Brewery, and it was mostly an empty parking lot because it was closed at that point. In the backseat of Dominique's Chevy Malibu, LeBancs, they began the transaction, but suddenly, without warning, Ronald flipped him over, and despite him protesting and fighting to defend himself, he began raping Oliver LeBancs.
Oh no.
Now, when he finished, Dominique grabbed the tire iron from the floor and bashed Oliver LeBancs twice in the head with it, causing a concussion immediately. Then he wrapped his hands around his throat and began strangling him.
Oh my God.
At some point, the force required to manually strangle someone became unsustainable. And so he wrapped a belt around Oliver LeBancs' neck and pulled it so tightly that the clasps cut into his neck.
Jesus.
And he choked him for several minutes until he was sure he was dead.
That is terrifying because when you see a picture of this man, he's a big guy.
Very intimidating.
And I'm not saying that in the sense of weight. I'm saying
he's an intimidating
he's a big build.
Guy.
And it would be so easy for him to overpower someone.
Yes, that's the thing.
That's so scary.
And
just what he's capable of anyways.
Just ruthless. I mean, that is brutal.
Oh, yeah.
What he did.
And it just sounds like everything happened so fast.
That's the thing. It sounds like it was just within an instant. Right. Everything turned.
These people had no chance to even defend themselves.
Now, Dominique drove Oliver LeBancs's body to a remote stretch of road near Zephyr Field, which was home to the AAA minor league New Orleans Zephyrs.
My God.
And dumped his body under a dark overpass. And then he drove back to his trailer in Houma. And Oliver's body was discovered the next morning by a passerby who reported it to police. Now, to show again that this pattern is that Ronald Dominique was establishing for his chosen victims, Oliver LeBancs was black. Like, obviously, he is choosing a very specific victim.
Yep.
Had a history of substance abuse struggles in the past and was known to engage in sex work from time to time just to get money for things he needed or wanted. Now, these facts, again, I would just want to make sure everybody knows, these facts do not define Oliver LeBancs as a person. But they give insight into Ronald Dominique's fucked up worldview and the way he is choosing his victims.
His victim profile.
He had a victim type now, definitely. We're at that point.
Right.
But even with all these patterns and similarities between victims and methods of murder, the press picked up on the fact that there was substance abuse history and the fact that he engaged in sex work sometimes. And so they're reporting on Oliver's murder focused largely on his being, and I quote, a gay prostitute. That's what they just called him.
Christ.
And, quote, an uneducated and unvalued transient kitchen employee in some mindless job.
Oh my God.
That was an actual quote used to describe the victim.
Oh, that just made my heart like, oh my God.
It's so shameful. It is wild.
It's like, who wrote that?
And luckily, in the years since his murder, LeBancs's friends and family have attempted to correct this narrative, which it's gross that they even have to do that. That shouldn't be their fucking job. That should be the job of journalists that are writing these things. They should be the ones.
How do you write something that callous?
According to a friend and former employer, Mar Paulson, he said he was not a badass in any way. Ollie had 5 children. He had responsibilities and a good future in front of him, but he had one weakness. While he'd been clean for some time, a long time, Ollie was a recovering drug addict.
Which, like, good for him for recovering.
He got clean. Like, he had a job.
Right.
He was working towards a better future.
He's
and
a father.
Like, it's so sad that these people even have to come out to try to defend the person that was, like, violently ripped away from them.
What was that headline?
They literally said, let me go back to find it, an uneducated and unvalued transient kitchen employee in some mindless job.
Unvalued? He has 5 children. He clearly has friends. He has a mom. He has family.
And these family and friends have to come forward and be like, hey, assholes of the world, he's more than his demons.
He's very valued.
Like, they have to actually be the ones to say it. It's like, that's so shitty.
Oh, that makes my heart hurt for him. And to die like that horrifically and then just to be chalked up to nothing in the paper. Like, whoever wrote that can go fuck themselves.
Well, it's like, the thing is, too, I don't see anyone coming. I didn't find anything about anybody that wrote kind of like shit like this or said shit like this about it, coming out and being like, wow, I was wrong. Like, that's a real person and I should have realized
because they're all hiding behind their shitty headlines.
It's like, why do you let that float out there?
How do you write something like that, hand it into your boss and then go home with your family for the night?
With your family. And it's like, what the fuck? Wow. And hearing someone who cared about him refer to him as Ollie.
Yeah, like that.
Like, kills me.
I don't even know what the word is. Yeah. Just like it humanizes the situation
it's
so
just
much.
That one thing, like, he wasn't Oliver LeBancs.
He was
victim of Ronald Dominique.
Ollie.
He was Ollie. Like someone and 5 kids' father.
And that's the thing, to think that he had 5 children. Yeah. That's awful.
It's really sad.
They lost their dad like that.
So for detectives, there was very little evidence at the scene. According to the autopsy, Oliver had been bound at the wrists and raped before being murdered.
Wow.
But the killer left no fingerprints and had worn a condom, so they didn't have anything left. So detectives didn't have a lot to work with here. What they did have was a single hair from a white man left on the body. But until they had a suspect to match it to, it just kind of sat there useless in evidence. They did know it was from a white man. That's all they could tell.
And this is like mid to late 90s at this point, so DNA hadn't even really come that far.
This is just kind of sitting here until we have a comparison, essentially. But detectives on the Oliver LeBancs case wouldn't have to wait long for their killer to strike again. Unfortunately, it would be in another jurisdiction, and a long time would pass before the connection between the victims was made. That was The other thing that Ronald Dominique did was he went to different jurisdictions and parishes. Knowing that there was going to take a while for them to connect these, because connecting different cases like that in different counties and parishes and jurisdictions can get reckless because it can really derail a case. It's like you really have to have solid evidence to make sure you know that these are connected.
Right.
And he knew that. So just 2 weeks after Oliver LeBancs's body was discovered under the overpass, the partially clothed body of 16-year-old Joseph Brown was discovered on October 19th, 1998. He was found on the western end of Veterans Memorial Boulevard in Kenner, which is a suburban community about 10 or 15 minutes outside New Orleans. To investigators at the scene, it looked like Brown's body had been, quote, pretty much dumped out of a car by the side of the road.
Wow.
Like trash.
Yeah.
He'd suffered, and this is really sad, like this one really got me. He'd suffered several severe lacerations and wounds to his head, and a bloody plastic bag was discovered near his body, which investigators suspect that the bag had been placed over his head as he was beaten to death.
My God.
Yes.
This guy's a fucking monster.
There's no words.
Like beyond.
Joseph Brown had grown up in, and I looked up the pronunciation of this place in Louisiana, and it is pronounced Booty, Louisiana, about 15 minutes from Kenner. Of course, the press labeled him a troubled teenager, not just a child who was brutally murdered.
Right.
On the night of his murder, Joseph had been out with some friends in Booty, and no one seemed to know how he'd gotten to Kenner or what he was doing there. The coroner ruled Brown's death a homicide by strangulation. He had also been beaten over the head, but I think he actually died by strangulation. Which obviously, a teenage boy dying by strangulation is like pretty unusual. Like,
yeah, one might say.
But otherwise, there weren't really clues to who or how, like other, like where he was killed. But again, they were just kind of like, well, he was a troubled kid. And it's like, well, troubled kids don't always get strangled. So I think we should look into that. Like, what the fuck? It's just, this is a really, really frustrating case in this sense.
But it's like, take out troubled. He's a kid.
He's a kid.
And that's all you should be focused on right now. He's a dead child.
16. I mean, that's young. That is young.
And plenty of people are troubled kids that grow into like amazing adults, and
doesn't mean they deserve to
get
beaten and strangled to death.
Exactly.
So Jefferson Parish detectives who were working the Oliver LeBancs case got called in November when the body of 18-year-old Bruce Williams was discovered in an industrial park in Jefferson Parish, just outside New Orleans. Like Oliver LeBancs, Williams was known to police as a sometimes sex worker who primarily worked in New Orleans proper. On the evening of November 27th, Williams was seen by friends in the French Quarter, and also like LeBancs, he had been raped and strangled. So he's got a very much an MO here. Mm-hmm. Now, this is an unusual number of young male rape/murder victims being discovered in the greater New Orleans area. At one point, one of the detectives was like, this is more murders than we have for an entire year.
Jeez.
Like, this is a lot. Like that, and there's a lot of murders in New Orleans.
I was gonna say
it's not like
it's not unknown to them.
But these were happening so quickly. He was like, at the end of like the whole thing, he was like, that stretch is more than we can sometimes have in a year, and it happened within like this small
period
of
months.
Time. So detectives on the LeBancs and Williams cases called actually the FBI's behavioral science unit, which I'm glad they finally took that
That's
step,
great.
because they wanted to create a profile of what was clearly a serial killer in the area. Unfortunately, the profile created by the FBI people were, it was pretty generic, and it was a little useless. It wasn't completely useless, but it was like kind of like, okay, thank you.
Was it in the early days of profiling? I don't really know when that even started, to be honest.
And it's like, and this was just like, I mean, it wasn't useless in the end. You look at it in the end and you're like, yeah, that was actually exactly dead on. But it's just, there's so many people that fit in this that it's really hard. They said their killer was a white male, mid-30s, difficulty with social skills, probably didn't have a lot of friends.
So almost like every serial killer that we have ever covered.
And a number of other vague characteristics that were just not unique enough to really help. But there was one aspect of the profile that would help investigators narrow down their search. According to FBI profiler Tom Colby, LeBancs and Williams' killer, he believed, lived near the airport. So he's like, bring your bring your net in closer to the airport.
I wonder what made him think that, especially because it was all spread out.
Well, they thought this because the locations of the string of body dumping sites, they were all near the airport.
Like
they were
back.
in a certain area that made sense. And while detectives in and around New Orleans worked with federal agents to develop a profile of what they were now believing was a serial killer, Ronald Dominique was back out on the hunt for a new victim.
He just goes and goes and goes.
On May 30th, 1999, the partially clothed body of 21-year-old Manuel Reed was discovered in the dumpster behind a business in Kenner. Reed had grown up in New Orleans, and like the other victims, he did have a history of struggling with substance abuse and was known to police as a sometimes sex worker. But also like the other victims, Reed had been raped and strangled. Now, the scene repeated itself exactly 1 month later when the body of 21-year-old Angel Mejia was discovered by a dumpster in an industrial area of Kenner. Detectives at the scene immediately noticed that Mejia fit what was by now seen as their serial killer's preferred victim profile.
Right.
And so, as a black man, he was already a member of a marginalized community, but he was also living on the streets at the time of his death.
Oh.
He didn't have any set address.
That's awful.
Which put him at greater risk of exploitation by men or monsters like Ronald Dominique. He had also been raped and strangled. But this time, Dominique had broken his pattern a little because he left him in a relatively well-lit area in front of a very regularly used business dumpster.
Do you think he was just getting bolder because he wasn't getting caught?
They thought he was just getting sloppy.
Sloppy. Got it.
They really thought he was just getting sloppy. Although they didn't know it at the time, the FBI's profile, like we said, generic as it was pretty accurate because Ronald Dominique was a white man in his 30s at this time with very slow or poor social skills.
Mm-hmm.
And what they found out was that he was actually living about 10 miles from the New Orleans International Airport.
Wow.
So they were actually dead on.
That's wild.
Isn't it? Profiling is really wild.
Gideon out here.
Right? Like many serial killers, he'd hunted for his victims in and around the place he was most familiar with and where he felt most comfortable. But again, with the murder of Angel Mejia, Dominique had apparently been going out of his way to either it looked initially, they were like, is he going out of his way to have his victim be discovered that quick?
Right.
Or is he sloppy?
Right.
Like they couldn't figure that one out. Because initially, like you said, they thought he was just being bold and
like,
being
you're not getting me.
But then later they're like, I think he was just being sloppy.
Which he probably got sloppy because he wasn't getting caught. It was probably the same.
It's kind of the same
way to
thought
get there.
process. Yeah. So since the discovery of Oliver Banks in October 1998, detectives in and around New Orleans had worked very quietly on the case that would eventually be linked back to Dominique. For one thing, the murders had been committed in, like I said before, different jurisdictions. So connecting them, they needed more evidence for it. It was also important to investigators that while the cases were open and ongoing, the pertinent information be kept close to the chest. They wanted it kept from the press, the public. They didn't want to create panic or create a situation where misinformation was running rampant that could harm or hinder the investigation, because now they're finally doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, these attempts at keeping it quiet and working behind the scenes became much harder in late June 1999 when, operating on misunderstood leaked information, the press began speculating on a possible serial killer operating in New Orleans.
Oy.
Now, it's unclear where journalists in the New Orleans area got this information, but by the end of June, reports started circulating about a potential serial killer who already claimed 3 young men whose shoeless bodies were dumped in isolated areas around New Orleans International Airport. The article linked the murders of Angel Mejia, Joseph Brown, and Manuel Reed, who is unidentified in the article. They don't even use their name.
Wow.
They link them to a single killer, and they claim that all 3 of these victims were all, quote, dark-skinned men, and they claimed falsely that they all had cocaine in their systems at the time of their death. And the article also makes a lot about them being shoeless when they were found, despite the fact that it is neither relevant nor true.
Oh, Good.
Before long, television news stations had picked up the stories. Internet detectives were like a booming thing at the time. They were not just started. They were all focusing very heavily on this removal of the shoes as the killer's signature.
Right.
It wasn't true. They weren't all missing their shoes, so this was bullshit. So now the entire internet is shitting their pants over this false thing, and the entire press is shitting their pants over this false thing, and everybody's wondering what it means. It doesn't mean anything because it's not true.
And you're not focused on the
You're
right
not focused
shit
on
here.
the fact that they are young Black men in marginalized, like a high risk, areas, high risk lifestyles, like dealing with, basically the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
And it's like you're not.
It's not
You're
about
not
the shoes.
focusing on, and
or
many
lack
of them
thereof.
were part of the gay community. Like you're not telling
You're not advertising
the right
that.
people the information to keep them safe. Like you're just being like, well, they're all shoeless. What could this mean? And it's like, no,
Right.
you need a big community of people to be looking behind their back now.
Exactly.
Like you need these people to be thinking, that they could be next.
But
like
even then, the press really didn't give a shit.
no, it's like that shows you that it's like they weren't focusing on what's important, keeping actual people safe. Now, the decision to release or withhold information about public safety, like we've talked about before, I mean, it's based on a lot of factors that aren't always obvious or understandable to those outside of the investigation. It's just a fact of life. And we've learned that time after time in many different cases.
Oh, yeah.
And it's generally true, I will say, that an informed public will be better, equipped to protect themselves in the event of an emergency. I fully believe that.
Yeah.
But when attention isn't paid to the kind of information that the public is being given, mistakes can be made that can jeopardize the case and actually put more people at risk. And that's what happened here.
I was worried that you were just going to say that.
They're not... It's just not, you're not telling the right people what they need to hear. And you're missing out on entire communities of people that need to know that they are the ones that are being targeted.
And like you said, like watch each other's backs.
Yeah. And the emphasis on the victims as Black male drug dealers or users wasn't telling a complete story or an entirely accurate one.
Right.
In fact, it misrepresented who was at risk. Specifically, like I said, marginalized men and boys of color who either were out as gay or were sex workers for their job at times. Like those were the people that you were like really
Watch
think
out
about
for
what
yourself.
you're doing at night so you can be prepared to protect yourself.
Yeah.
Overlooking or misrepresenting the reality of Dominique's preferred victims by, among other things, playing up these unfounded facts of the case meant that those that were most at risk were being given bad information.
Right.
And this became apparent in August of that year when police discovered the body of 34-year-old Mitchell Johnson under the very same overpass where Oliver LeBancs had been discovered a year earlier.
Oh, wow.
At the time of his death, Mitchell Johnson was living on the streets in Kenner, where he was last seen by friends on the night of his murder. Johnson's friends told police that they'd seen, quote, a suspicious guy cruising around the neighborhood around.
Getting scared is one thing. Getting a thrill is, well, you want more of those in your life. The Genesis GV70 is built to thrill, baby. A thrilling yet elegant design always makes driving the GV70 an exciting adventure. Its powerful athletic stance screams performance and turns heads. Everybody's looking at you, girl, or boy, or whoever. Command the road and experience a class-leading standard 300 horsepower. Oh my God. Plus, discover the different dynamic drive modes for all different terrains. Choose between the different terrain modes for whatever road conditions you may encounter. The Genesis GV70's award-winning technology and performance lets you drive with comfort and drive with confidence all at the same time. It's an exciting SUV with intuitive tech that can make your ride smooth even when the road isn't. And its blind spot cameras allow you to see what's next to you. It's like having eyes on the side of your head. That's pretty iconic. Its performance, by the way, is measured not only in power, but in how it makes you feel confident, sexy. The Genesis GV70. Learn more at genesis.com and feel the GV70.
Need a boost? Sometimes all it takes is tapping into your inner cool. Icebreaker's gum helps you unleash the confidence within. Each chew releases a rush of icy flavor powered by cooling flavor crystals, sending a wave of refreshment to reinvigorate all your senses. Icebreaker's convenient pack fits everywhere, from car cup holders to backpack pockets, so you can find your cool wherever you go. Grab Icebreaker's gum online or at a store near you.
The time Johnson went missing. They described the man as a white male, mid-30s, receding hairline, and puffy cheeks. That's exactly what Ronald Dominique looks like.
Spot on.
There wasn't much else of distinction to separate the suspect from hundreds of other puffy white dudes in their 30s living around New Orleans at the time. Meanwhile, the coroner confirmed what police already more or less knew, that Mitchell Johnson had been raped and strangled before being dumped, just feet from where Oliver LeBancs had been dumped.
Wow.
Now, the murder of Mitchell Johnson seemed to support the belief among the press that there was indeed a serial killer operating in the suburbs of New Orleans. And hoping to use the press to their advantage, finally, police released a sketch of the man seen in the area that night that Johnson disappeared. And in their statement to the press, the suspect was described as, quote, a serial killer targeting men in the area, rather than a serial killer targeting Black and gay men, which investigators feared would negatively influence the public's desire to help.
That's so fucked that they even had to consider that.
We gotta do better, everyone.
Yeah, to say the least.
Regardless of how they phrased it, the picture and the articles didn't produce any new leads, but they had to worry that if they mentioned Black men and boys and gay men and boys and sex workers, that the public would be like, well, I don't really care.
That's so messed up.
So it's like, in that sense, this whole thing, they were trying to do the right thing by like making sure the public would give a shit by not mentioning the details.
But still, it's...
But when you think of the actual ramifications of that whole thing,
right,
it just makes you sick.
Sure does.
It really does. Now, it's unknown whether Ronald Dominique even saw the article or the police sketch, but just after it ran in early November, he quit his job with the county and moved his trailer further into Houma, which is that small city on the Bayou, about 60 miles from New Orleans.
Okay.
He parked his trailer on some property next to his sister's house on Bayou Blue Road and was happy to learn that the police sketch and various articles about a serial killer hadn't yet made their way southwest of New Orleans, so they didn't even know about it. Within a few weeks, Ronald found work as a laborer at Caro Produce Company.
The fact that this man was just handling people's produce, too, like...
Yeah.
So something so disturbing about that.
Now, on January 1st, 2000, a driver called police in Lafource Parish to report that they'd seen a man lying motionless by a barbed wire fence on the side of Highway 7. When police arrived at the site, they discovered the body of 23-year-old Michael Vincent. Michael Vincent had a record that included some drug charges, just to put him in that pattern. And he also had an unsettled way of living that, again, made him fit perfectly into Ronald's vulnerable victim profile. The autopsy showed that he'd been bound at the wrists and suffered several abrasions, but the cause of death was most certainly, quote, homicidal asphyxiation. The murder was not connected to the other murders of gay men and sex workers in the other parishes, which is kind of wild. I think it's because he was found further out from New Orleans.
Okay.
Maybe, I guess. But the investigation into Vincent's death would be further complicated by the fact that while Ronald Dominique may have ended the 20th century with yet another murder, 2 years would pass before he killed anyone again.
Interesting.
He took some time between them.
Yeah.
And that's where we're going to leave you here. We're going to leave you with 2 years between killings, and it's going to get even, I mean... It just keeps getting bad and bad and bad. But I think we can all rest there for a moment.
Yeah, that was a lot of just tragedy. In
part 2, we are going to talk about the 2002 murders in the Bayou. We are eventually going to, in Bayou Blue as well. There's murders there between 2003 and 2005. We're going to talk about each of the victims.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about his arrest and the court case that followed, and eventually him going bye-bye into prison forever.
Good. I'm excited for that part.
You have that to look forward to, but I think we'll leave off there so we can all think about what the fuck we just listened to.
Holy shit.
And when we pick up, it's 2 years later.
All right. Well, with that being said, we hope you keep listening.
And we hope you
keep
it weird.
But not so weird that any of this, because oh my God.
Yeah.
Talk about regrets. We all know someone who's been in a car accident and said, I don't need to call a lawyer, only to regret it after their pain and damages were worse than expected. When someone hurts you, you deserve to be compensated fairly. Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm, fighting for the people for over 35 years. Injured? Visit forthepeople.com/podcast. That's forthepeople.com/podcast. Their fee is free unless they win.
Traditional home security only alerts you after a break-in, and that's too late. Simply Safe is changing that.
Stop. This is Simply Safe. Police are on the way.
We don't just alert, we stop crime before it starts. Simply Safe, plan starting around $1 a day. Save 50% on your new system with professional monitoring at simplysafe.com/SXM or with promo code SXM.
Outdoor deterrence requires a Simply Safe Active Guard outdoor protection plan starting at $49.99 a month. Visit simplysafe.com/licenses for alarm license information. Tennessee 2012.